this live, while it's focused on men, it's not just for men, it's for ladies as well. We want you all to chime in and let us know what you think, because I'm sure that you have men in your life who you want to know better more about, and maybe to have more conversations with as well. All right, so it's just about that time according to my clock. It's 5 past, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to what was an impromptu live, but a good live nonetheless. We are having an important conversation here this evening. My name is Quinn St. Of those of you who don't know, I am the host and creator of the Game Changers podcast, as well as a journalist by day with St. Lucia Times. And I have a special guest on with me today. So feel free to introduce yourself to my audience.
All right, wonderful, Quinn. It's so good to be here with you on Game Changers. Finally,
Finally.
we have had some appointments before, but we are finally here, and I'm here by him. Um, Pastor here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the youngest pastor, a youth pastor. I currently pastor in the North Leeward district of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I just love advocating for young people. And now tonight we're gonna be advocating for our men as we discuss this very important topic. I just want to say a happy International Men's Day to you, Quinn, and to all the men who are viewing. Um, I trust that you had a wonderful day today and that you are recognized for the contribution that you make as a man in society. Big up on yourself one time.
For sure, for sure. Happy International Men's Day to you as well, Profi. For those of you who don't know, if you have seen the fly, it seemed like we were wearing something similar. There's a reason for that. Providence and I served at on the associate student body together. And when we were in college, he was the president, and I served as the editor of the Channel magazine at the time. So we go way back, man. We go way back. We have had a good rapport today, and hopefully we'll have a good conversation. So let's just begin. Providence, why are men important in your opinion?
I mean, first of all, God created man first.
uh,
Def- Definitely, we know that at creation, God created man
mm,
and he gave man dominion over the earth. So,
mm,
there and then, you know directly that men are important in God's sight.
mm,
All right. Men, we were given the role of spiritual leaders.
mm,
In fact, we are, well, women are told that they should submit themselves to the men as a head.
mm.
And so men fall directly after Jesus. And so if we want to reestablish the original plan that God has for this world, we have to forget that, men are being sidelined. They are being marginalized. And you see whereby, and let me just put this disclaimer out there to everybody. I am in no way, shape, or form against women. Let me just make that clear. All right. We love our women. We're here to support our women. But I think it's time for us now to speak to empower our men, you know, um, so that we can help to deal with some of the challenges that we face in society that we later discuss about. But importantly, reason why we should talk about men and we should be men are important is because we were created by God. God formed us from the dust of the ground. That tells us, that tells me something important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I agree with that. I agree that we are here for a purpose. But like you rightfully said, Providence, we see in society men are being marginalized. Now the question then is, do we do that to ourselves, or is the other gender doing it? I would think that a lot of that happens because we do that to ourselves as well, because men often, we have a role in society, and we often put ourselves in positions that force us to I don't want to say force us to become marginalized, but make us less than what we were created to be, based on what you just said there. We were created to be leaders in society. We were created to have purpose, and often we don't see that purpose in men at all. It seems that men are not purpose driven as much as they should be. But why do you think that is, though?
That's something very important because I would then now later ask if because if you say that sometimes men put themselves in that position, now what would have caused men to fall into that position?
Okay.
All right, that's something you have to think about. Is it that the men realize that they feel perhaps that their only purpose is just to provide, procreate, and just leave, or are we being treated as someone of value
Mm,
that we want to be a part of society, or is it that we're just seen as an object of society or a means to an end within society? That will lead me to that question. And so I believe that because the emphasis have been shifted for a while, that you realize this men are just okay saying, all right, well, I don't feel like I have a place here in society. So might as well I just rock back.
yeah.
Yeah.
So because they don't feel like have a purpose, they just exist. They're just existent. They're not active in society, and we see, um, rightfully so, I guess, because if the men don't step up, then some of the women have to fill the gaps, and
Mhm.
that is what's happening. And so I see it, like you rightfully said, it's twofold. So on one hand, it's that men are not valued, so they don't see that the value in themselves because they are not valued. But it also is also on us to value ourselves, because we we can't wait for somebody else to value us before we value ourselves, and that is something that is very, very necessary. Keep it going in the chat. Let us know what your thoughts are as well. Why do you think men aren't valued in the way that they're supposed to be valued in society? Is it twofold? Like, do you agree with what we were saying? Do you have any other ideas? Let us know in the chat as we continue this important conversation. All right, Promise. So, um, we've spoken about the role of men in society. Um, let's go to purpose then. Let's broaden it a little bit wider to purpose. How does a man in particular find his purpose?
Well, that before we even reach to that aspect of purpose, Quinn, um, let's just touch on the theme of the International Men's Day
Sure.
for 2025. It focuses on our men and boys, and luckily, for this year, um, they're looking at men's mental health. Right? It starts there in the mind, and mental health. We speak a lot about physical health of
Mm-hmm.
individuals, but we don't take the time to look at mental health, which is very, very, very important. Because if your mind is not strong, then your body is weak.
That's true.
All right. If you are not mentally fortified,
Mm-hmm.
then how can you even know what your purpose is?
For
How
sure.
can you even start to begin the journey of discovery of your purpose? And it is often said that men take a longer time to develop. All right. That is scientifically proven.
Mm-hmm.
So we already at a setback in
Right.
development.
Right. Biologically, it's not our fault. It's not our
Naturally,
fault.
right? So we already at a setback. All right. Then while the world is moving ahead, sometimes when a man discovers his purpose, they say that a man begins to live at age 30, between age 30 and 35.
Mm.
Now, if a man had a way to reach that age to start to develop or find his purpose, then you see where the problem really is.
Yeah.
You
It's with
know,
the young men. It's with the young men. So we that's the age group that we need to focus on. And I like that you said that, because we often see that these are the individuals that fall by the wayside. If you look at the majority of crimes, they are between the ages 18 to 30, right? That is
mhm.
where the majority of crimes are. So once they have the ability to become I guess they have the willpower and the ability to go out in society and do things for themselves. And towards 30, when maybe they start maturing a little bit more. If you look at the age group, the demographic that quote unquote, well, not quote unquote, they are criminals. I have to say it as it is. Criminals fall into are males between the ages of 18 and 30. And it's because that demographic is not being taken care of.
Right.
Um, now there was a time in society where women were treated really badly. We have to admit that. We have to admit
Mhm.
that there was a time in society when women were treated really badly, and it was not good. And I'm happy that we've improved in that way. But I can argue that we've gone maybe too far. We've flipped the scale too far on the other side, which is why I am very pro equity. And when we talk about gender equity, we don't just mean women's equity. Because sometimes when we talk about gender equity,
Yes.
individuals think that it's just for women, but it's for both genders. Because in order to balance the scale, both genders must come to the table. One, both genders must also have the opportunity to develop themselves as well. So I believe that equity is very important. I see Ajay Lima saying something very important in the chat. He says one of the key issues is that families without male role models, and I agree with that as well. That's another big thing. We
I
see
saw that
how.
comment. I saw that comment from my chime in. I saw that comment, and I was literally gonna ask you, even like, who would have helped you to shape you to the individual who you are today? Who would have led you towards discovering your purpose, like where you are today? Because I mean, you're doing really good. I can say I'm proud of you.
Thank
You're
you.
doing excellent. But where did it all start? Who would have inspired you to be where you are today?
Good question. For me, it began at home. I saw my father do everything in the house. There's nothing in the house that my father refused to do.
Mm,
In terms of the chores that people define as women's chores, he did that. In terms of the men's chores, in terms of maintenance, he did that as well. Whatever needs to be done, he did it. And then he'll also go to work and begin fully employed. He would have had difficult conversations with me. Obviously, he was the main disciplinarian in our household as well. So it started from home. I think my dad really showcased his love and also his discipline and support, and that's it guided me throughout my life so far. um Also, there were other male role models that stood out to me. When I was in primary school, there was this teacher, right? I hope he finds this. Maybe we'll alter that into a short and send it out so he gets it. But this there was this teacher named Brendan Joseph, right? So Brandon, he was an individual who was larger than life in many ways, very tall, very big, and he was the only male teacher at the school. In our teaching society, it's mainly females, and he was the only male teacher in the school. And because he was the only male teacher, he became the teacher for all the males in the school because he
mm,
was like a father figure. He was the first person outside of my dad. Well, my uncles as well, so my dad and my uncles. But he was one of the few people outside of my dad that I could have said, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Right? I want
right.
to. I have somebody who I can follow. I have a muse that I can follow. Right? And as I became a teenager, it would have been friends. We so often discount, the importance of our peers. It became friends. As I became a young adult, I have a group of male friends who really drive me forward. Mostly we play video games together, but um, through in that environment, that it really strengthens me as well because we have difficult conversations through games. And let me put a pin in here because sometimes women believe that men speak about the issues by sitting down on a couch somewhere and doing something like that. That's not how men operate. If you want a man
Mm.
to tell you his problems, engage him in an activity that he
Activity that he
likes.
likes. Thank
So
you. I
in
think
terms of
we can shake that and put that as a short. So we can see that we need to come and sit down and do the things that the men like because women often talk about men not talking. They're not becoming vulnerable and they closed off. But are they creating the environment
environment, there
for
you
the
go.
men to feel safe
There you go.
to talk about? Now you mentioned about your father and your uncles and your friends. But my question is now, how many of our young men today can say the same thing like you?
Yeah, that's a good
How
question.
how many
That,
of us? How many
that's a
of
good
us?
question. And what I would say to that, Providence, is that okay, fine. You might not have grown up in a place with a father and maybe uncles, but if you want to find genuine people, it starts by being a genuine person yourself,
Correct.
right? When I, for example, I'll use USC as an example. When I, became a member of the ASB, there were males and females on the ASB, but um, they were genuine people there. I found true friendship. Um, I mean, sometimes we went back and forth at each other, because we had work to do. But I found true friendship amongst you guys because it started with me being genuine. I
Hmm.
searched for genuine friendship and I got it in return. And sometimes I think people do not understand the importance of that. Do not assume that these people must be genuine first and then I can get genuine. No, be genuine first yourself, and then if everybody thinks that way, then we'll just have a whole bunch of genuine people, right? And then we can work together as friends. So for a male individual who is struggling, needs a pair like that, it starts from you. Be
I
genuine.
mean, that's biblical. That is biblical. Proverbs
Right.
18:24. It says if a man had friends, he must show himself friendly. He must first show
There
himself
you go.
friendly. So
There you
if
go.
we want to have friends who are genuine, we have to first of all be genuine.
Hmm.
But I also want to touch on this before we move on from this aspect of the discussion and to talk about choice, right?
Okay.
As a young man, choice. Because for your example, and praise God, and big up to the fathers and to the men that who show forth good role models to the younger ones. Big up to you, because there are still few guys out there who actually are solid role models.
For
All
sure.
right, so big up to you. But that's a good choice. Now, as for your example, you had your father around and he showed you what a man is supposed to be like. I can say for me, I'm the opposite.
Mm.
All right. I made a choice that I will choose not to be the man that my father was.
Okay. Interesting.
So I became the opposite.
Mm.
My father was the alcoholic, the
Ah, got you.
womanizer, the abuser, the spendthrift, um, absent. All right. And I purpose then, when I realized all of that, having to step in and to play his role, I purpose in my heart that I will not be like my father.
Mm.
And so everything he did, I sought to do the opposite.
Opposite.
All right. And that was because I made that choice. So while the example may or may not be good around us, we have to know what we want in life. We have to
Absolutely.
decide what are we going to follow. And we have to understand that whatever path we choose, we have to be responsible for that.
Absolutely. And probably I want to add to that. That's a exceptional point, and I'm happy that we have two different perspectives. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but sometimes I have to be careful how I say this, and you'll back me up because you were the one in the situation. There's a certain point where men have to be men and become a man, right? You
Mhm.
can't rely on, okay, well, my father wasn't there, so yeah, that's my crutch. I'll hold on to it my entire life. I mean, if you do that, then you cannot survive life. I mean, you can comment on that as well. Isn't that what you did?
Yeah, I did that, but you have to be also aware that not everyone will deal with situations the same.
Fair.
All right. And in order for me to move on from that past, I had to have a hard conversation with my dad.
If
I
you're
had to
that.
have that. Yeah,
Okay.
I had to have it because psychologically you will not move on from it
Hmm.
because it will always be a part of you. You'll always feel it. You'll always remember it. And some persons, sad to say, they don't move on from it. And if we want to learn to forgive, we have to have the hard conversations. So I had to go through a period where I sat my dad down several times and say, this is what happened. This is how I felt. I'm disappointed in you.
Mm,
However, I forgive you. As my dad, I love you. I want the best for us to move on. I had to take the initiative to do that because I wanted to move on.
mm.
There are
So,
some who allow ego and self to prevent them from having that conversation, and they are stuck in the past and they have not dealt with. That is why I often say, and I touch to it, that men's mental health is very important because you'll find a lot of guys. I meet a lot of guys today, and they said to you, I am this rough way because that's how I grew up. My father this, my father that. This is what I know, this is what I saw, and this is
mm,
all that I'm going to do. They have not embraced that side that they could be should they just choose to move on and to see life at a different angle, but a different perspective. And that lends to the importance of mental health. Checking in
absolutely.
with yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So let's go back into the chat. I see Carlson Hackshaw say, I strongly believe that the effort of men is highly unappreciated. We give so much, make so much sacrifices, and yet it's unnoticed. And yes, this is the stigma that we're trying to break today. That is why we have in this life to give men one their flowers, but also to give men some advice as well. I also see him saying, I also believe that we as men are partly responsible for what happened to us, in that we don't know who we are, and so we accept anything, dropping the standard that God has given. I think he wanted to say, and I agree with that 100%. And we would have said that a little bit earlier on. This is because, or partly because, we have dropped the ball in many areas.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, fellas, maybe it started from a generation ago, but men haven't always behaved well, right? And it's something that we shouldn't continue, right? We should see, like Providence pointed out in his own life, in your life, maybe your father wasn't around. Do you now become who your father
Correct.
was? You don't, because I mean, two wrongs don't make a right. You understand? All right, I'm seeing somebody else here saying some of the hardest choices is realizing that, sorry, some of the hardest choices is realizing we do not want to be like our fathers. And yeah, and it's, I'm sure that was a difficult conversation, bro. You don't have to go into the details of what you spoke about, because I know it's personal. But what was it like? How do you feel in the conversation and after it?
But to be honest, during the conversation, it was a bit intimidating
Mm.
because knowing my father, if I said something that he didn't like, then I was gonna get.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I was wondering to myself, am I at a point whereby I am allowed to have this conversation? But I did not allow fear to overtake me.
Mm,
Okay, I went boldly because I knew what I wanted. Okay, and during the conversation, to see him actually open up and to share the reason why he treated me the way he treated me, why he neglected. I mean, the reasons were not valid, but I mean, but it went back to the way how he grew up. It went back to his father.
yeah. So
You know,
sometimes, sometimes it's a generational cycle. So it's something that happened to him as well, and that's all he knew. But you, knowing better than him, cannot do the same thing that he
I
did.
can't. I
You
can't
cannot.
because my choice was that I am gonna break the cycle.
Yeah.
My choice was that whatever it is that happened between you and your father and your father, and whoever, it stops with me because
Absolutely.
I don't want to carry on this for my family, for my children. My children will not experience this. So, in order for me to do this, I had to do that, have that conversation. And I think that is why a lot of people, a lot of men, we are suffering is that because we are just continuing. And this is just not just for men, but everybody, but we're talking about men tonight.
Yeah.
We are continuing a cycle. We just continuing a cycle. And unless we identify where we need to change, we're not gonna change. Unless
Mhm.
we face that fear, unless we face that past. And that is why for me, as a youth pastor, when I'm having counseling sessions, the first few sessions we go back to dealing with the past. Because if you have not moved from your past, you can't move forward.
You can't move forward. It's
You have
impossible.
to deal with it. You have to deal with it because we are already pressured by society. We are already pressured by social media. And so many expectations are there for men. Sometimes men just can't take all the pressure and then we break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in order for us to prevent that breaking, we have to fix where we see a crack,
For sure.
in a
For
sense.
sure. I would agree with that 100%, bro. And you're absolutely right. And like you said earlier on, it takes a level of understanding and awareness of yourself. Do some introspection. Maybe even have a conversation with people who know you very well. And I think that's where good friends come into play,
Mm,
because good friends would be honest with you even when it's a hard truth. One thing I like about my friends, my group of friends, is that, bro, these men, I know if I do something crazy, they're going to tell me, hey, bro, that's crazy, you're not doing that, right? We
yeah.
will not let you do that as your friend. And that is something that I appreciate about them a lot. And we need more of these individuals in society, because, bro, if you have a group of friends, particularly male friends, who don't address you when you're wrong, that's a problem. That is a problem, bro. You need to find, either you need to one of my lecturers at USC, interestingly, told me this: Quinn, either you change the people or you change the people. In other words,
Mm,
either you change, you get them to behave in the right way, or you replace them with other individuals who are better off for you. Either you
mm,
change the people or you change the people. And I think that is a key indicator for men as well. Because, bro, I it's only like now I can understand how important these friends were to me in my life. How important these friends were to me in my development. Because if they did not exist, people see me now, Quinn is in China. Quinn is doing all those things. Quinn has this podcast that is successful. But if these individuals were not behind me, none of these
mm,
things would have been possible. Like, literally impossible to do without these good men in my background.
mm.
So I think it's very important that we understand that one and we embrace it as well. Let's go back to the chat. I see Ajay again saying social media portrays quote unquote men, what men should be. And there's a level of social pressure men comprise to fit in. Yeah, and I agree with that as well. And that is a problem. We don't have to be what social media portrays. And
And
then
that
there are,
goes back to that goes back to identity and
yeah,
purpose, knowing
who are
knowing your
you?
purpose. If you
Who are
know
you?
who you are, then there's no need for you to try to fit in.
For
If
sure.
you know who God has made you to be, if you already set your standard and decide what you are going to be, and we want to encourage our men to be positive and
Boy, yeah.
be good role models, okay? Because we can be talking all of this and it can fall on the wrong ear and they saying, well, okay, do what you want, follow your dreams, have your purpose, and your purpose is probably to be a serial killer. I mean,
That's true. That's
we have
very true.
to we have to encourage that, we want it to be something good. All right. And while you were talking about friends, it just jogged my mind back to think about, and let's just use this as an example to show the importance of positive role model friends and male figures in your life.
Yeah.
Why do you think that gangs are thriving? Why do you think that they're
Ah,
growing?
good question. Good question. Because they have somebody who they
Love,
can look up to, and
they have
love,
they have love,
acceptance. They have acceptance.
they have
I
support,
like. Yeah, they have a purpose. Whether you agree with the purpose or not, they do
they
have a
have
purpose.
yeah, they set
Yeah.
themselves up and then they are surrounded with a body who is there for them.
Yeah,
Like you are part of a gang. If somebody come and talk to you wrong, you go and call your brethren coming up, and you know for sure the whole squad coming.
for sure.
It makes you feel secure,
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel loved, appreciated, accepted. If society would do that for us, make us feel loved, I mean, and the positive people that might be around us, or the environments that we find ourselves in, if we have a safe and secure environment, one that is supportive, one that is encouraging, one that is motivating, you would realize whereby, and you share the example. For you, your friends wouldn't allow you to do anything stupid.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Because, so you already have that support group that you have. And look at where you are now. If it is that we can formulate a support group whereby we can share and encourage our young men, um, to be better, to inspire them to change and to develop themselves, and to develop their purpose, then, and I believe that society will be a much better place. I believe marriages will be better. I believe homes will be much better, because there are a lot of homes that are suffering. There are a lot of marriages that are suffering. Have mercy. And a lot of men, we suffer silently, and that is why emphasis have not been placed on men, is because we are silent sufferers. A man will only burst out when he just can't take no more.
For
And
sure.
it is often said, pressure does bust pipe.
Always, always.
And when we get to that point whereby, I mean, pressure can't take no more,
The pipe will burst. It
man
gonna burst.
exploding. And we
Yeah.
don't care. And when a pipe bursts, the water don't care where it run. It mash up
No.
anything that's in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You
You end up.
understand?
You know how people say you end up bleeding on people who didn't cut you. That's exactly what it is. You end
Exactly
up.
what's gonna
You
happen.
so other people get affected by something that was caused not necessarily by them, but they get affected, and you see that in the marriages. We see that in day to day relationships. We see that in society in general, and that is because of their lack of purpose. And to go back to the chat, we see the chat buzzing off. Somebody says our fathers are our first example of what a man is supposed to be. I agree with that. At
Mhm.
some point we can pick up and choose what part of our fathers we want to be like. I agree with that. My father was an amazing role model, but he would tell you that there's some parts of him or some things that he did in my life when I was younger that he doesn't want me to take. He doesn't want me to
Mhm.
take because he made mistakes as well. He's only human. That's just the reality of it,
Correct, correct.
and so there are things in your father's life that you take, and there are things that you don't take, and it's up to you to choose. I'm
Same for me
seeing.
as well. Same for me as well. I took some things from my dad that I like. And my dad was a construction engineer. I
Right.
make sure I could do everything for myself. So
Yeah.
there are some things, his skills. He was an excellent cook. I mean, that man could throw down a pot. Yeah, seriously. And I thank God I could cook.
Mm,
And I took that from him, because while he was doing his stuff, he still showed me some things that I can take away, and I'm forever grateful. You know. So it's all about choosing. You just have to be the filter of your own life. You choose what you accept, and you strain the rest straight away. But it's you have to make the choice. So that's very good point there.
yeah, I'm seeing Ajay again asking a question to you in particular. He asked, based on your experience as a pastor, what message would you share with men today about their purpose and identity in Christ? That's a big question. You want to tackle it now?
Big question. Let me see how well I can handle it now, and if there's anything we can continue it, because I'm sure some of this will come up later in the
Yeah.
discussion. I can share it best by sharing my experience.
Okay,
That's
sure.
the only best way I could do it. I remember my journey as a Christian and knowing my identity in Christ started when I started taking time to study the Word.
Okay.
All right. So in secondary school, after experiencing all the drama of my life, going through peer pressure, making mistakes, falling down, many times, I started at afternoons reading the Bible.
Mm,
All right. And that would have helped me a lot in character building, especially when you read Paul's writing. I mean, he became my favorite author those times.
mm,
You see practical examples and practical instructions how to live. He talks about honesty, talks about self-control, talks about discipline. So you realize that a man, a true man with identity and purpose, must have these characteristics. All right. You see where it says, if a man desires the office of a bishop, he
Mm.
must first be the husband of one wife.
Right.
And you see all these things. So right there, you learn integrity. All right. Then reading the book of Proverbs, it tells you a lot, so much about wisdom. Tells you a lot about character. It tells you a lot
For
about
sure.
money. It tells you a lot about even choosing a life partner.
Hmm.
And so reading those, I realized, okay, this is what a man is supposed to be like. Because remember, I didn't have the direct example from my dad, and I wanted to be different.
Hmm.
And so reading the word and getting closer to Christ, you'd realize whereby how a man is supposed to be. And that is a man after God's own heart. That is a man after good character, because I have always desired that I wanted to be different. I wanted to make a difference. And so reading the Bible would have helped and shaped me a lot into developing the character part of me. And know that when your character is developed, your mind is now shaped into who you want to be, then now can you apply the practical principles as to reaching to that place. So after realizing that and changing my character, changing my mind, as we said earlier, all begins in the mind, mental health. And so after knowing what you want now, then you start to seek out the ways you can get it done. So therefore now I started to apply myself in being disciplined, in working hard, in trying to be honest in my dealings, speaking the truth, um, living with integrity, knowing that integrity is not what you do when others are looking, but when no one else is looking. And
Mm.
that those things help me to change me as an individual. And so then now I have now known that your purpose in life is to share what you have become, share who you have become. And that is how I reached the point of identifying what my purpose and my identity in Christ really is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's well put. I don't need to add anything else to that particular point. You put that really well. Everything that you said there, I agree with. I'm also seeing Karim posting a question here. He says, oftentimes when men try to bring up the issues to the fore, their patriarchal past is brought up and used to diminish those issues. I see that as a huge hurdle. Thoughts? Boy, let me start with this one. Boy, that it is so true. And
It's
I
true.
want to say to maybe the ladies who are watching here is that the fact that men were terrible in the past doesn't diminish the challenges that modern men go through. That, I mean, the two things can exist at the same time. We can our forefathers at least could have been terrible in the past. Even some males today can be terrible. That doesn't mean that they don't have those struggles. So I think, you know, like I said, these two things can exist simultaneously, and it's very important that we tackle the issues, but also address the bad behavior as well. You want to add anything on that?
My question would be, even to that, um, not about dismissing the issues, but do you think that sometimes as men we use our past as excuses for our behavior?
Possibly.
Yeah,
Possibly. Yeah.
because we want to justify our actions. That's how man stop. Well, that's how I grew. Me intend to change, and that's what I see. So that's how I had to be. I mean, sometimes we can use our past as excuse. I mean, hell, I could have used my past as excuse if I was a promiscuous person. If I was a bad person, I could have used it. But as I said before, when we started, it all comes down to a choice. You have
Hmm.
to choose who you want to be. And we should always be responsible for our choices. And I think as men, sometimes we don't take responsibility for our actions. We
Absolutely.
we we engage in neglect. We we are ill-disciplined sometimes, and we make excuses. If we just own up to our responsibility, admit where we would have faltered, seek to change and adjust, listen, I think things will be all right. And this is perhaps why sometimes the women don't want to even create that space or environment for men to even speak,
Because we
or
don't accept it.
so we don't really accept what we
Yeah,
want to see.
it's fair.
Because the hardest thing, Quinn, and I had to do it. It's not easy. Is to see your reflection.
Ha,
Look in the
boy.
mirror. Oh my God. And see that bad behavior. See that ugly character. See the truth of yourself being revealed. Man, it's not something easy to accept.
It isn't. It really isn't. Yeah, they always say that acceptance is the first step, but they don't always speak about how difficult the first step is. It's always like, okay, yeah, acceptance, you accept and then you move forward. But getting to accept is always the hardest thing to do. Yeah. So, and then, well, after you accept, then you recognize, okay, yes, I really have something to change. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, that's often also a hard thing to do. You
Very hard.
pu- look at yourself in the mirror and then you realize, boy, I am so flawed. I have so many problems. I have to become a better individual, not just for myself, but for my family, for my significant other, individuals in my circle, maybe even people in my workplace, so I can
Hmm.
thrive in across life.
Hmm.
And that's not an easy thing. It's not a fun
But
thing to
just
do either.
not fun. But you can just even understand how difficult it is in your profession, in my profession.
Yeah,
Tell me, just think back as to that point where you began public speaking and how difficult it was for you to listen to yourself.
bro, I hate I still hate to listen to my voice often. It annoys me. I when I was on TV and I had to read the news all the time, boy, I just wanted to every time. So the funny thing about it, so we would record the news and it would be playing, and I'd be walking in town. I would hear my voice on buses, and bro, I that disgusted me. And that is really the reality of our lives. When we hear ourselves, then we hear all the flaws, we hear all the issues, and then you want to hide from it. But the only way we can do it is by listening to it and then
Exactly.
addressing it and then going back. Boy, the chat is going crazy. We have to address what's in the chat right now.
Yeah, let's go.
So
Let's go
I
there.
see I see Big Louis saying, with proper support and guidance, we can be the man who our future family would need. Proverbs 10:4 says, our hand is not to be slack. We have to be we have that diligent hand to be what we need to be. I agree with that. So,
Mhm.
we often say that idle hands are the devil's workshop, but let's not give the devil glory. Working hands are God's workshop. Let's put it that way.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Karim is asking again, do you think men can be open and honest about their real world realities when women are around? Ooh, that's a very good that's a big question. I would say, in my opinion, the right women, yes. But
Yes.
in my opinion, again, there are some conversations that only a man will understand. That's just
Hmm.
that's just the reality. God made us differently. The reality is there's some things that men will never understand about women, and there's some things that women will never understand about men. That's just the
And
reality.
if I could just chime in to help answer that question, that's a very important question. I would answer this question by saying that we should be able to open and be honest to the realities when women are wrong. Because here's the thing, women, they desire this, they want it. They want for a man to be vulnerable, to be open, and to be honest. But here is the flip side. Can they really handle when a man is truly open and honest about his realities? Can they actually handle it? And so that is one of the reasons why men are so cautious about sharing and opening, because when we really start to open and the women really start to see what is behind that hard-working, handsome-looking man, man, they might get scared and they might just can't.
And run away.
So that is the reason why, sometimes men don't feel comfortable to share. And I often say to men, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
You can share, but there's a time and a place. I mean, you don't just meet somebody today and then you just start to divulge everything that you're
Nah,
going through. Or
impossible.
you're gonna make a woman run. So knowing the time, the place, the relationship, the level of the relationship that you are at, I think that a true woman who is genuine, who wants the best of her man, would listen without judgment
Hmm.
and allow him to honestly open about the reality. And trust me, when you get to that point, I mean, it makes the man feel so much better. And so we encouraging women who are here, please, one of the greatest things that a man would need is a safe space whereby he can open up and talk to you, share his feelings without being judged or looked down upon or considered as a weak man.
Yeah.
Men just need an open space. Why you think the rum shops and them full up?
Yeah. Or the
Because a
barber
man could just
shops.
go there. Yeah.
The barber
Barbershops are my
shops.
therapy. That's my
Yeah,
therapy.
for sure. For sure. Let me tell you something. Barbershops, most of these men inside that barbershop are not cutting their hair. Their hair, they're there for the therapy, like you said. It's very therapeutic. I often say it was the first podcast, so we were having those important podcast conversations in the barbershop before we had them, before they were streamed live, So, yeah, man, I would agree with that. Men are looking for that safe space. We are running out of time, but we actually went over the initial limit that we spoke about probably, but the conversation is so good. We'll tackle
Yeah.
what's in the chat, and then we'll have to end. Because I'm sure you also have other stuff to do, and I do as well. Um, we say once you go into that watery grave, our past is to go there. So I'm guessing he's speaking about physical baptism
Mm,
and spiritual as well. We as men need to start thinking about what kind of example we want to be. People will need to learn to forget what we've done in the past. I don't know if I agree with the last part because we have to ask for that forgiveness as well. So it's not just they will just forget about us.
mm.
I think that it's an active role. So yes, I agree that ultimately we want them to get to forgive us, but we also have to play an active role in that. I think you agree with that as well. Yeah. And then the final question is, Quinn and Provi, you think men feel comfortable expressing vulnerability today? I think we kind of tackled that a while ago.
Yeah.
It can be tough. It can be tough. Let's be honest. It can be
It's
a
it's
difficulty.
tough. It's really
Yeah.
tough. It's
Especially
really tough.
expressing it to certain women. Not all women. I mean, we'll assume that you have some good women in your life. But many women, it can be difficult for us. So yeah, the reality is it's not easy to be vulnerable, but we have to be vulnerable. Probably last final thought before we wrap up
Right.
this very engaging live. I enjoyed this conversation. It was very good that you reached out to me for this impromptu. But I'll give you the floor to begin the final thoughts, and then I'll close.
Yeah, great stuff. So I just want to say thanks so much for accepting. And this is just the beginning for
For sure.
me. We have so much more discussions to have and just to empower our men. So just look out for stuff that will be coming out from my side, and I will share it with you as well, Quinn. For us to be a part of it because I think this is something that needs to be tackled. We need to empower our men and boys, and the International Men's Day theme is focusing on empowering our men and boys. So I just want to shout out to all our men. Happy International Men's Day to you. And I just want to encourage us. Let us strive to be good men. Let us strive to be men of character, men of worth, men of value, men of great standards. Let us be men of God so that we can help shape a better society and take back what the devil has seeking to steal away from us. God has given us that responsibility, that spiritual responsibility, and it's for us to seek out ways to be the man that we are supposed to be, regardless of the pressures and the challenges that we are facing. We can find help, we can find support. Let us talk, let us share, let us encourage one another. Let us stop pulling down ourselves as men and being so competitive that we want to destroy our own species. But let us support our men, let us encourage our men, and let us all build a unity among men so we can all be strong again.
For sure. Perfectly said. I would agree with everything that he said. I just want to add that the if you want more conversations like this, not just on men, but in topics that would benefit society in general, subscribe to this podcast. I always have amazing conversations with amazing guests, amazing males, amazing females, conversations that are necessary. I think we'll have to start going live a little bit more. But for now, you can also watch those episodes that are not quite live. We always have these important conversations with each other, and I'm happy to share that. That is what Game Changers is about. It's really about changing the game, particularly among young people, who I believe that when you plant a seed in youth, you really transform them for life. Right. So, and to thank you for coming on. Thank you for having this conversation with us. And until next time, I'll see you. Stay hungry. I'll see you then. Bye bye.